what more are you wanting from us?
I guess specifics with the nitty-gritty, because I'm doing my best to ignore and focus on other things. But I think my desire has gotten stronger and stronger for being with someone who's healthy, and it's easier to be with someone who's healthy. I just feel overwhelmed by how to extract myself from this, because I don't want to leave him. I love being with him. But his illness makes it almost impossible for me to ignore it. I've done my very best that I'm aware of. And I can have great times with him, and you've helped me many times focus on all the great things with him, and there's still more reason to be together than there is apart. But so it's the specifics of
specifics of how to not look at one thing and look at another.
Well, he was exposed to a pneumonia leak. I know you don't want to go into the details, but that makes him real sensitive to a lot of chemicals. And it makes it almost, he needs to live in a bubble. I mean, he controls so many conditions in order for him to be okay, that in order to be around him, I have to agree to that.
We are ringing here. Has our technician left the building? There's a little button here. You can just turn it down a little bit on the corner of this. It says, yes, there, that is better.
For instance, he would be allergic to anything you would put in your hair. Like if I used to dye my hair, put hairspray, makeup, anything that most people don't even think about using bothers him. And I've gotten to the point where it's just too difficult. I mean, I want to be able to do what I want to do and not think about things that most people would never imagine could make someone ill. Yet if I choose that, if I choose highlighting my hair or putting makeup on or doing something where I feel pretty, that makes him sick and he can't be near me. So I've tried giving up a lot of things, but I've gotten to the point where I hate that. I don't want to do that anymore, and I don't know how to ignore it because it's difficult. I mean, some days it seems like, well, it's a no-brainer, just don't use those things, but I'm not a all-natural girl. I never will be. I've done my best, but it's extreme. I mean, you know the details, and I don't want to activate all of that, but it's where he sleeps, it's everything, the clothes we wear. I just am not the right temperament, I don't think, to keep living this way, and I've always looked at it as a temporary situation. He's on his way to becoming healthy. I believe it's entirely possible for him to get back in balance, and so does he wants to get back in balance, but after all these years, I'm just beginning to doubt myself and thinking, we tried breaking up and it was horrible. I mean, I adore him. He's wonderful. He's great. I would love to have a baby with him, but I can't live this way. And yet I know that's placing a condition. In order for me to be with you have to be well. And yet his illness is all about conditions. There are certain things that have to be done. And it's insane. I mean, I don't know many people who could put up with it. And he does a great job because it's tough on him, obviously, too. But I want to feel free and happy and just an ease in my life.
Well, we are very happy to talk with you about all of this because you bring to us an really exaggerated example of needing to control conditions in order to feel good.
Right.
In other words, it's so many physical humans believe that they must control the condition before they can feel good. And if we were talking with your boyfriend, the conversation that we would have with him would go something like, in the same way that you have not always been this way. In other words, it has come in a door, so to speak, and it can go out the same door. In the same way that you have come from not having this sensitivity to having it, you can come to again not having the sensitivity. As we are speaking with you, what we want to say to you is every relationship is only a part of that which is your entire experience. Right. And most people want everything about the relationship to dovetail with everything about everything that they are, and as a result, most relationships are far more consuming than they need to be. So now we can feel the argument forming within you a little bit already, so just relax and hear us out, because we may not go where you think we're going to go.
Okay.
While we know that you still have to go home, and we know that you have to prepare yourself in a way that you can return again. We understand all of that. We want you to just for a little while focus upon you are a multifaceted being, and one of those facets is about this relationship, but you are multifaceted. In other words, there is much more about your life experience than only that. And if you will focus there for just a little while, you will begin to feel some relief from the feeling of confinement that this relationship gives you. Most people actually spend more time with the people they work with than they do with the people that they are married to. In other words, many people spend as much time with their friends as they do with the people that they are married to or living with. There are all kinds of relationships and all kinds of ways of living relationships. But when you decide, I'm in the middle of a relationship that makes more demands from me than I am comfortable with, then that is a doomed relationship, because you cannot say, I cannot be free and I cannot be happy, but I'm still going to do this. In other words, that's why you feel like it's this dilemma that you're faced with. I can be with him and be unhappy, or I can be not with him and be unhappy. Which is the path of less unhappiness, is sort of what we are hearing from you. And what we are teaching is that you can have it all.
And I want it all.
We like to say to people, even when there are two people who seem to want many different things, we want to say to each of them, you can each have your different things and still have a working relationship. But what it requires of you, we won't talk about him because we're not talking to him. What it requires of you is you've just got to make up your mind that in other words, you could stay in the relationship or you could go. There are no wrong choices. And in either case, you could have a happy life. But if you decide to stay, you've got to decide, I'm going to stay and I'm going to have a happy life. I'm going to find a way to make this work. You can't say, I'm going to stay, but I don't like this and I don't like this and it's not fair and nobody should have to do this and nobody should have to put up with this and nobody should have to make these sacrifices. And so, once you make the decision that you are going to stay, and we don't feel that within you yet. Once you make the decision that you are going to stay and that you are going to make it work, then solutions that will work for you will come. You will discover things that he has no sensitivity to. You will discover his sensitivity to things lessening all the time. So, as long as it is sort of the breaking point for you. In other words, as long as there is this thing that is between you, this thing will continue to be there. And we believe that almost in the moment you decide this thing is not a big enough thing for me to even consider, it will begin to dissipate. It is feeding on itself because it is something that both of you are so worried about. As you say, and you say it in many ways, not just with your words, but you are beginning to say it more and more with your words. These are sacrifices that are uncomfortable for me. In other words, what you would like in your partner is what everybody would like in their partner. You would like a perfect partner. You would like a partner that is so wonderful that it just makes it easier for you to feel good. But you have chosen a partner that not only does not make it easy for you to feel good, makes it hard for you to feel good. And this is your opportunity. It's a dramatic one, we acknowledge. This is your opportunity to say, well, if I can feel good under these conditions, then there will be nothing that is out there that I will not be able to feel good about. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would start making lists of positive aspects of this person, of the way you feel much of the time when you feel good with this person, of all of the reasons that you want to be with this person. We would write lists of, wouldn't it be nice if this improved and this improved and this improved, and we would do this for about a week. We would spend as much time at this positive aspect focus as we could. And at the end of the week, we would say to ourselves, well, which is it? Am I staying or going? In other words, because we would not torture ourselves. In other words, to stay and feel trapped in staying puts you in a position that it is not likely that you will ever find happiness in the relationship. In other words, you just have to make up your mind. And we think that the reason that this has happened and that the reason that the two of you are together is because you are, like Abraham, wanting to find ways of helping others to understand what unconditional love is. Unconditional love says, I'm going to find a way to feel good regardless of the condition. I'm not going to demand that conditions change in order for me to feel good. And almost nobody lives that way, and you certainly haven't been living that way. In other words, most everyone says, make this different and then I'll have a better feeling response to it. And so what this situation is demanding from you is that you find a way of feeling good anyway. And it's amazing, there are people in this highly technologically evolved society where Jerry the other day was talking about the ease of the way they eat, that they can go a short distance from anywhere they are as they travel around the nation and find delicious food that has been prepared that will come right to the table. And he was describing what he remembers as life as a child on the farm, where first you had to raise the chicken, then you had to catch the chicken, then you had to kill the chicken, then you had to pluck the chicken, then you had to cook the chicken, and you didn't eat one every single day. There weren't that many chickens around. And then you had to chop the wood, and then you had to burn the wood, and then you had to cook the food, and then you had to hoe the field, and then you had to plant the field. And what he was describing was the difference in the work involved in getting a meal when he was a child as compared to what it is like for nearly everyone today here. And yet, there are people who will load up a handful of provisions, put them on a backpack, and hike off into the wilderness and sleep on the ground and fend for their food, sometimes hunt it or fish it, and prepare it for the delicious experience of approaching life differently than they usually do or than most everybody they know does, just to have the adventure of the new experience. And if you could see yourself as a sort of pioneer that is finding this an adventure where together you're discovering different ways of living. So what if everybody you know lives differently? Why not make a game of it? Why not make some fun of it? Why not feel satisfied when you discover something else that works? Why not reach for something that works for both of you and then feel proud because you've found a solution, rather than feeling disappointed that your relationship demands a different solution? You see what we are getting at?
Well, I thought that was my question initially. I want to feel that way. I want to feel free and proud and content here and now with him.
Well, we think that your circumstances will evolve, but the first thing is you have to find a way of feeling hopeful that you can live happily ever after with this one.
Right. And I used to have that, and I would say that's...
But your hopefulness was contingent upon him getting over this. So it was still a conditional thing.
Right.
In other words, you were still saying, well, I can put up with this for a little while, but long range you better get better. And now you're irritated because it's been a long enough time that you wanted him to be better, and your patience is running out on this unconditional love because it was never unconditional. It was conditional upon him getting better. Mm-hmm. And now what we're saying to you is, why not really make it unconditional? Why not say, in the same way that you would say to anyone with a handicap, there's more benefit to us being together than to us being apart, and I'm going to make the best of this in all of these ways. And we suspect that when you really relax and accept it and do your best to make the best of it, rather than seeing it as something that you need to get rid of. In other words, we think this is what's going wrong. Mm-hmm. So here he is with this thing that he has no idea how it came or any idea how to control it. And he is suffering with his response from it. And then there you are, uncomfortable from his response from it, and uncomfortable from the sacrifices that you have to make too. So there's this thing that sort of is between you that both of you are focused upon a great deal of the time, that both of you would like to go away. And the reason that this doesn't work, and anybody in your shoes would be feeling exactly as you are. In other words, everyone understands. We're not saying that you are selfish or not normal. It is certainly normal. But what we are saying to you is, as you look at this thing that you want to go away, and then you remember Abraham playing with you and saying, the war against drugs and the war against AIDS and the war, you cannot push against this thing you do not want and obliterate it, because your attention to it holds you to it. So when you find a way, and you can play many games to do it, when you find a way that causes you to stop pushing so hard against it, you'll feel better right away. And we suspect then it will begin to go away.